Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Time to Rethink Your Playbook, How to Market to Millennials and Gen Z. I'm Jolene Carey-Pace, the Program Coordinator at the Wilkes University Small Business Development Center, and I'm so happy that all of you could join us this afternoon. Our webinar today is presented in partnership with the team at Cole Creative, and today we have Holly Polkavich, President and CEO of Cole Creative, and Samantha Booker, Content Manager and Design Specialist at Cole Creative, joining us today. Just a quick note to please put yourselves on mute so that we can avoid having any background noise. Also, as we go along, you can put any questions that you might have into the chat box, and there will also be time at the end of the presentation to ask any questions that you might have. And now I'll hand it over to Cole Creative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jolene. Hi there. Hey, Amy. Saw you just pop on the video, a familiar face and a lot of names that we're unfamiliar with. So I'm really excited to spend some time with you all this afternoon. Samantha and I have worked diligently over the last few weeks doing research and putting together what I would call a short presentation, because we do want to open this up for conversation, questions throughout it. So we're not in the business of talking at you for 60 straight minutes. So any questions you might have, we will do our absolute best to answer it. I don't want to steal Samantha's line, but I feel like it's relevant here is we are living, marketing to millennials and Gen Zers right now. So we're also learning with you, but since this is technically our day job, we do have, we think, a little bit of insight and information that we can share with you based on the research and just things that we're seeing as well day to day with the work that we're doing here at Cole Creative. We do have a PowerPoint because visuals are awesome, and hopefully we'll keep you engaged here. Let me start presenting. Thank you, Samantha, for putting this together as well. So as you know, we're here to talk about how to market to millennials and Gen Zers, and I'm going to pass it over to Samantha in a minute, but a little bit more about Cole Creative and who each of us are and why we're here having this conversation with you today. So to start with Cole Creative, we are a full service creative agency. We're headquartered in downtown Wilkes-Barre, right on Public Square, and our roots are truly here in Northeastern Pennsylvania, and we work with a lot of local small businesses as well as nonprofits, and then a few medium and large size businesses throughout the country. So our primary services are video, website design and development, social media strategy and management, strategy and consulting in general, and then in the world of public relations. So people come to us with one-off projects, campaigns, or they just they need a full-blown marketing team to execute on their vision and their goals around their brand and what they're trying to do, whether it's a product or a service. So that's who we are in a super nutshell, but we're not here to sell or talk about Cole Creative the whole time. Just want to make sure you know why we're here. As Jolene noted, I am the president and CEO of Cole Creative, and essentially what I get to do is, one, have the opportunity and absolute honor to work alongside my incredible small but tight-knit team here at Cole Creative across our departments, which again are video, content, as well as web. And I basically, in my role, oversee the long and short-term strategies, and as a small business, wear a lot of different hats when it comes to the financials, the operations, and all of those good things too. I know there's probably a few people on the call, maybe most of you know a lot about wearing a lot of different hats. So that's who I am. I'm going to pass it over to Samantha so she can introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Holly. Like Holly said, we're both super happy to be here. Thank you everyone for joining us and for having us give this presentation. My name is Samantha Booker. I am Cole Creative's Content Manager and Design Specialist. I'm actually a full-time remote employee also, even way before the pandemic. I live in Royersford, Pennsylvania, which is kind of by King of Prussia area, if you're familiar with that. But I'm still so heavily involved in everything going on in NEPA and still very connected with my team, which is super cool to be able to do this kind of stuff too. So through my role at Cole Creative, I kind of straddle the line between our content and design teams. On the content end of things, I work with our content team to create social media plans, strategies, posts, blog posts, website content, newsletters, and more. Through the design side of things, I work with our lead designer to develop logos, posters, invitations, signs, billboards, basically anything print, and also some digital stuff as well. I also serve as a liaison between our collaborators and the different teams at Cole Creative to make sure that our collaborator stories are being told both verbally and visually.
That's wonderful. So to get us started here, and we're just going to jump right in if that's okay with anybody. Since we are screen sharing in full transparency, I cannot see all of the boxes or see if anybody's raising their hand. So it might be best to use that chat feature that Jolene was speaking about. And if you have any questions about how to utilize that, just come off mute and we could definitely answer them more directly as well, if that's easier for you. But before we get into giving you actual tools for your playbook or any suggestions or information, we just have a few slides here of understanding the generations and talking about why it's important to know the difference between them, especially when it comes to marketing. And we basically narrowed it down as we were discussing what we were going to bring to the table today for all of you. And to simply put it, you just need to know how and where to reach them. And once you do reach them, you have to connect with them in their preferred way. And we'll explain this as we're going through the slides, and this should make a little bit more sense if it doesn't already. We are digital-based marketing companies, so we're going to speak a lot to the digital space, but understanding that Northeastern Pennsylvania is also analog, and understanding the importance of that. There might be millennials and Gen Zers that don't even really know what analog means. So how does that impact you if you are doing, if you're implementing different initiatives for your organizations and businesses that are in that what we could refer to, and you could feel free to laugh, but the old school way of marketing, which still works in Northeastern Pennsylvania because we're catching up. And I think the pandemic has really afforded us to and pressured us a little bit to catch up a little bit quicker as well. So again, we'll be focusing a lot in the digital space here, but we could do our best to answer any questions or have a conversation around the analog space as well. So on that note, pass it over to Samantha.
Thank you, Holly. So first off, let's spend some time defining who millennials are and who Gen Z are and what this generation actually entails. So first off, if you look at all different websites, you'll get all kinds of different information. Sometimes the dates really vary. For this presentation, we decided to go with numbers from the Pew Research Center. So according to them, millennials are born anywhere from 1981 to 1996, which means that in 2021, these are people who are aged 25 to 40 years old. Millennials oftentimes get a super bad rap, but in reality, this is a very varied generation that spans decades. These are people who are recent college graduates, they're entry-level workers, they're managers, they're even parents. So a lot of the times, the people who are actually millennials don't fit into the stereotypical millennial mold. On the other hand, Gen Zers are born between 1996 and 2010. So that means in 2021, these people are 11 to 24 years old. So because of this, this means that a lot of information of what we're going to tell you today about marketing to Gen Z could really change in the next 2 to 3 years. These people, like the 11-year-olds, the teenagers, these are people who might not have a job yet. They might not, they're in school, they're figuring out their lives. So as these people enter the workforce, as these people get more buying power, the different tactics to tackle them and market to them will change. So this is something that you just have to take and understand that we're learning as we go. These people are growing, and because of that, the marketing trends directed towards them are also growing. What's also cool is that up next is Generation Alpha, which sounds really cool and awesome. So we got that to look forward to as well.
I am convinced that the name itself will convince them that they are the alpha, like literally the alpha generation, and we'll see a lot of that, which will be exciting to see that unfold. And Samantha, if you wouldn't mind, you made a really good point when we were talking yesterday as well. It's like, even though they might be 11 right now and they're not opening up their wallets at the stores, you talked a little bit about the power they have with their parents, who are also, in many cases, millennials. Can you speak to that a little bit?
That's a great point. I mean, if you look at these numbers, there are millennials in like that 30 to 40 range who could have those like 11 to 15-year-olds or however, people. So this is interesting to see, like those Gen Zers on Instagram, on TikTok, seeing these products have that power to go to their parents and say, hey, mom, I saw this cool thing on Instagram. Can I buy it? Can we go to the store to get it? I see this a lot with like my younger sisters, my younger cousins. If they see all these things they get marketed to, and then the parents end up buying them. So it's interesting to see how when you're targeting Gen Z, you might inadvertently also be marketing to millennials as well. You want to make that messaging, you want to make it look good to both generations, because at the end of the day, the millennial parents might be buying this stuff, but you have to start with the kids too.
Yeah, and a note that will come up probably more than once throughout this hour that we have together is that Gen Z are the first true digital natives generationally, meaning, I mean, I think I got my first cell phone when I was 13. So, and we weren't in a household where we could afford that first computer until I was a teenager as well. So if you think about it, and if there's anybody here that has kids, I mean, are they on iPads? And I'm sure there's parental restrictions, but as they get older and have their own devices, they are being exposed to different apps and different marketing already, and planting that seed and making decisions subconsciously about how they feel about what they're seeing. So just keeping all of that in mind as well. So kind of moving it along here, just wanted to talk about some buzzwords. And it's interesting, and again, because I think we're seeing that this data and research and information is coming out now, and it's going to continue changing as Gen Z especially gets older and actually gets more into the buying power age. And we're just referring, like when we say buying power, it's just more so about being 18 and above. I know there's a nonprofit here, for example, just know that we're using that as like a blanket statement. It's not just all about business that's selling a product or a service. But with that said, there's a lot of similarities, and there's things that are true to each generation, even though especially you'll see it on the cusp here. Samantha and I were identifying full transparency. I'm 31. I'm a millennial. I guess I'm smack dab in the middle here. And Samantha is right on the cusp, depending on what year you look at. So she is, I guess, a little bit of both.
I was born in 1996. So according to the numbers we use, I'm really smack dab in the middle.
Yeah. So what you'll see a lot is that both have the buzzwords again: loyalty, authenticity, they're tech savvy, and individual expression. When we're talking about things like loyalty, this generation more than ever, both generations, I should say, but kind of putting them together here, they are building loyalties around companies that they truly believe in. They are not driven by ads, sale, buy now, buy now, buy now. It's more so about who you are as a company, kind of tying into that authenticity. Who are the humans behind it? And this isn't in all cases, but in a lot of ways, they want to know, how is this impacting me? How is this impacting my parents, my family, my neighbors, my actual community? They have a genuine interest in that and seeing that give back factor as well. Note it, they're tech savvy. So most millennials, we're in that transition. So we have a very unique where we remember to some extent not having all of these devices and literally the internet and everything in the world at our fingertips. But then you have the Gen Zers who don't know a world without it, which is very, very interesting and unique. And then again, coming down to that individual expression, believe it or not, in a lot of cases, they don't. I remember being a teenager and it was like all about brands, like brands on my t-shirts, brands on my pants. And a lot of times you'll find, and again, these are just assumptions at large. It doesn't mean every individual is like this, but they don't actually want to just say like, I'm only a Hollister buying, teen or whatever it might be. Hollister, does that age me? Do people still shop at Hollister? I'm not sure. Anyway, so when you're looking more to the millennial side, you see words like rewards, referrals, adaptive, passion for learning, focusing a little bit more on the top two there. So rewards, meaning that, to put it very simply, we love when we are able to come in, whether it's electronically or it's a literal like punch thing, because we also like keepsakes. When you're buying that cup of coffee and we know we're going to get that 10th one free, which ties back into being loyal and wanting to build a relationship with the brand. I know for me personally, it is always my goal to be able to walk in somewhere and know that they know my order. Maybe a little bit of a weird goal, but I know that's something that millennials like to do. We want to be able to know the name of the owner. In a lot of cases, we want to have that relationship. So if there's a reward that's going to keep us coming back and we know we're going to get that 10th coffee, that 10th book, whatever it might be free, you're probably going to keep us sticking around. Also referrals. What we mean by referrals is in a lot of cases, I kind of mentioned, like, it's not all about buy now, say on sale, click here, buy it. We're going to skim over a lot of those ads just as we're scrolling through our feeds. But as soon as I see that Samantha shared about the coffee that she tried at a Bide Coffee House over in downtown Wilkes-Barre and how delicious that latte was, all of a sudden that's what we would consider a referral here, where I'm trusting my peer, my professional colleague, and friend more than any ad that I'm seeing. So, and we'll talk a little bit about more influencers, which is impacting more so on the Gen Z side, but also millennials to a certain point, where we are looking for real people, and that's in both generations, but especially in Gen Z. They want to see, I can't see everyone on this call, but if you're familiar with TikTok, that is a very primary location and one of the main apps where you're going to see influencers all over the place, and people will follow their TikTok channels or their pages and go to them for very specific content or listen to them or try a product. It happened to me last night. I shared with my team this morning. I was influenced for the first time via TikTok. I bought a product because I connect with the person that was, and she's actually local. She's a local influencer, but she blew up nationally and internationally. So there's an element of uncertainty with Gen Z, especially because they're growing up with the pandemic, hitting them smack dab as they're growing up. They had a lot taken away from them. So they're going to be a little bit skeptical, and you're going to see that they're really going to be careful about a lot of the decisions that they make about what they're going to support, who they're going to buy from, things like that. So just a couple notes there. Samantha, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on this page. I know there's a lot that could be, brought up here. Go ahead, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, so when looking at the different buzzwords around the generation, it's kind of interesting to see what traits were kept from the previous generation, which were lost, and which were improved upon. So for an example, just looking for this, like millennials are very socially conscious. They really, like Holly said, they connect with their brands. They make very loyal customers. This is also true for Gen Z, but they kind of take it a step further. They're very active. They seek truth actively. They take action. They mobilize for different causes. So it's interesting to see how this kind of found a base in the social consciousness of millennials, but Gen Z's take it to the next level.
Yeah, I can actually use two real life examples to speak to that, which overlap a little bit with both generations. So one in the influencer realm, especially locally, and something that I think we're going to see more organizations and businesses utilizing in Northeastern Pennsylvania is the concept of influencers and local influencers. So I had the opportunity recently where NEPA Sings got creative. They picked like 7, 8, 9 of us in the community to do an unboxing to help promote their recent NEPA Sings event at the Garden Drive-In. And I thought that was really cool. And it's a way where now they have up to 10 different individuals, 10 different circles of individuals and their networks. While it's not directly, we weren't on video doing an unboxing all about NEPA Sings or CASA as an organization, but all of a sudden we've now planted the seed about this organization and a really incredible event that they put on every year. So that many more people, it just ripples out in that way. So that was just a real example recently. Then also that mobilizing aspect, especially in younger millennials and in the Gen Z. If anyone is local to downtown Wilkes-Barre, and if you're familiar with, and I would say Google this after if you're not even aware of it, but recently in downtown Wilkes-Barre, a billboard company was coming in and covering a mural in downtown. It's the Title Fight mural. It's a very simple mural. It just has a couple boxes. And over the past few weeks, the way that it has mobilized on the digital platforms and the way that the fans, it's for a band, the band did not say a word, the fans enacted, created pages, got very, very loud about it. It literally almost forced all of the parties to get into one room. We had a meeting last week. And as of yesterday, the billboard company has decided to move the billboard up and they are no longer covering the mural. So that's a real life example. And I know that doesn't tie necessarily to business, but that is how, if you upset a generation enough, and if anybody's heard about things getting canceled over the last couple of years, that's real. And that can happen on a local level. So just keeping all of those things in mind, that you do want to make sure with these generations that you are putting, that you're taking a socially conscious mindset when making decisions. And while you do have to take care of your businesses and your organizations, of course, at the end of the day, just ensuring that any of those decisions won't upset a whole generation's worth of individuals is really important, which could sound like a little bit of a heavy ask, but if anything, we just appreciate the pause, if that makes sense. We appreciate the pause and the fact that you are taking a moment to think about it before, making a final decision. So on that note, Samantha, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Holly. So now we're going to spend some time diving a little deeper and taking a look at the key traits of each generation. So starting off with the millennials. So this is the generation that's coming off of the Great Recession of 2008. So through the years of 2005 through 2017, they saw a drastic decrease in their earnings. And even today, this kind of created a lasting impact and ripple effects that we now see There's fewer jobs available, there's decrease in saving, and there's even a reluctance to purchase a house and make that big financial decision. So the whole generation is kind of impacting off of these certain events that happened as they were growing up. Another thing to note about millennials is that they are very socially conscious, and they also tend to be more open-minded than previous generations. Another thing is that technology has radically changed their worldview. So many grew up in an age where technology was rapidly changing. In my own life, I still remember at home when we'd use floppy disks. And growing up, that changed 5 or 6 times to now at work, I use a 5 terabyte hard drive. So throughout my whole life, I've seen all this technology rapidly changing and things move quickly. So that kind of has defined my worldview, personally speaking. On the other hand of things, Gen Z, a lot of them never knew a world before computers. They kind of grew up in the internet age. They're digital natives. They're very tech savvy. Now they were kind of set to inherit a stronger economy, but because the pandemic happened, it kind of reshaped the world as we knew it. It affected every single area that you can think of: entertainment, education, social issues, the economy. Pretty much everything is still reeling from the effects of the pandemic. And a lot of these effects are still unfolding as we're speaking. There's still a lot of uncertainty kind of peppering the air. So as these Gen Zers start to come to enter the workforce, start to go to college, pursue their education, there's this layer of uncertainty that's kind of defining what they do, which I think in just kind of like thinking about it, I think that means loyalty is at an all-time importance. It's so important to connect with people and stay loyal to people because we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. So when you're thinking about how to establish followers of a brand, it's that connection that I think is really key. Gen Z is also shaping up to be one of the most diverse generations, racially and ethnically speaking, and also one of the most educated generations. Like we said before, they aim to seek truth, they mobilize for causes they believe in, and they really pursue learning outside of school as well and kind of make sure they're aware of all social issues going on, generally speaking. Holly, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that popped in my mind with Gen Z and the note that you just made about the diversity of it. As you are looking and thinking about your organizations and businesses and looking at your target audiences, and if you're seeing gaps or you're unable to reach audiences that you feel like you should be reaching, I would recommend just taking a step back and really looking at what are the marketing pieces that I'm putting out and who are they speaking to, who are they addressing, who are they showcasing. If you're using imagery, one thing that I think won't change much is that people look for themselves in marketing and are they represented. So and kind of an easy example is obviously the way that you look, but if you are looking to serve or service the Hispanic population, do you have Spanish translated materials or things like that on your social media, and are you speaking to them in that way? Just kind of as a simple way to think about that. I just wanted to throw that out there, that sometimes it just takes us to take a step back and have an honest look and conversation with yourself and your marketing team, and internally, externally, whatever it might be, and make sure that you have all of them represented in whoever your target audience is. Again, there's a lot of different people in the room, so can't speak to one, but just a note there. Okay. Samantha, were you done there? Sorry.
Yep. Thank you.
We're presenting from two different spaces, so we got to check in the moment. But so up next, and I know we're sharing a lot of an overview, but we want to share some similarities, differences, and then we're going to get into some of the things that we want to have you consider for your playbook. So hopefully this is painting a bigger picture, and we can hone in here in a marketing sense. But you will see, and we've kind of already talked about it, the similarities between both generations is they do prefer digital channels. So I noted that right in the beginning. If you are Northeast Pennsylvania based, if you are community based, so it's not even the whole region, it's just a certain county or city, or just taking that into consideration, they're online. Social media, all the different platforms. A note that I will make here is it does not mean you have to be on every platform. I do know something popped up in my own Facebook memories, and I had listed every platform I was on at one point, and there was like 12 of them. And there's no way that an individual can even keep up with that. So I don't think there should ever be an expectation for a business, unless you have a very large marketing budget and are able to have the capacity to handle that. You should identify for your business or organization, where does my target audience live? If you are selling things for an elderly population, in full transparency, you most likely don't need to be on TikTok. So just identifying things like that, that's a little bit of an extreme example. They also prefer online shopping. So this aspect of not really having to leave their houses, or in some cases interact with people, we all have those days. The more that I think the generations come up and they're very digitally based, and post-pandemic, I think we're all kind of getting used to being alone and not having to interact with people as much, that when they do decide to go out, they want to go exactly where they know they need to go, where they're loyal to, where they want to get that cup of coffee every morning, whatever that might look like. But at the end of the day, they want to do, I mean, I get my groceries delivered at this point. So the world is shifting. So just keeping in mind that if you have a product or something that can go online, there are options like having a Shopify page, or if you use WordPress as for your website, you can implement something called WooCommerce, and you can set all of that up. Their purchase habits are heavily influenced by social media. So again, going back to just the things that they see, it's not necessarily about throwing out sponsored ads, about click here, buy now, it's on sale, but rather being influenced by who they're connected to, who they trust, which influencers they follow, etc. They do use Instagram almost equally. Instagram, in a lot of cases, it's more about authentic posts, high resolution images. Honestly, branded images aren't the best thing to put on there. We're guilty of doing that at Cool Creative sometimes, but we're in a little bit of a different industry in the marketing realm, and there's different reasons why we do that on there. But at the end of the day, just showing those real life photos, high resolution. If you have a product, getting a photographer to take them, or at least, I mean, our iPhones and Androids at this point take very good photos with good lighting. So just making sure that those are as high quality as possible. They're willing to pay more for customer experiences. So if there's a $10 difference, but they know that going to business A versus business B is going to be a more enjoyable experience, they're most likely going to do that. They love video content. In general, content is king. That is something that you hear a lot in marketing. It is true. I don't think that's going away anytime soon, but specifically video content. And that goes across many of the generations, but especially in this realm. Again, I mean, TikTok is literally, just speaking to the Gen Z population, it's literally all video content. It's not photos or anything along those lines. YouTube is a big one for them too. I know that's, unless you are genuinely, as an organization or business, creating high quality, consistent content, YouTube might not be the first place that you would go. But again, there might be people in the room that sell or have services that go beyond the area. And then they appreciate a brand loyalty program. So they're going to pay more and support those brands that they believe in and love. And brands meaning businesses, organizations, etc. So Samantha, any thoughts here? Are we all set?
I think this, just to speak and as a real life example, the part about these generations kind of spending a little more to support people they believe in, I think that's totally true. I look at, even online, I look at a business I support regularly. There's one of my favorite sock companies. They make these really cute socks for like fall and winter. They're women owned, they're family owned. They take old clothes to keep them out of the landfill and use them to create recycled yarn. Their socks cost a little more than I would like if I went to Walmart or Target and bought just a pack of plain white socks. But I know that when I purchase this, I'm supporting their family business. I'm supporting the environment. So just knowing that kind of makes me feel better about making that purchase rather than spending the like $5 on a pack of sock at like some faceless corporation type thing. And even on the nonprofit end, I'm a huge animal lover, and one of my favorite like dog rescues, they post pictures of the dogs and they write like paragraphs of the dog as if they were people. Like, this is Frank. He likes long walks on the beach and enjoys like drinking coffee in the morning or something. And they make it funny, they make it humorous, but you kind of connect with them. Like, you connect with the people behind this thing, and it makes me more inclined to donate to them when it comes time to like make my monthly donations for things. So it's stuff like that of being human, showing that humorous side of you, showing that real side of you that could cause more people to connect with your brand, your business, your nonprofit, stuff like that.
Samantha, you made a good point, and I want to point it out. Right now, and hopefully forever, there's a lot of power in, if your organization or business is this way, to identify as woman owned, LGBTQ plus owned, Black owned, BIPOC, however you want to do that. There's a lot of power in how people are choosing to support in these generations. And I think across the generations, but especially in these generations, we're latching on to that. And we want to be able to support in areas that we feel are underrepresented or need that support to grow and get an equal base in the world that we live in today. So thanks for noting that.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Thank you, Holly. So now we're going to take a look at some of the differences between these two generations. They're very similar, but there are some areas where they kind of break off. So first off, we'll talk about email marketing. So millennials tend to check their emails more than Gen Z. So if you're someone whose target audience is mostly millennials, there is still something to be said about creating newsletters, creating e-blasts, and trying to get engagement through email. Now, social platforms. Holly kind of alluded to this a little before, but when it comes to deciding what kind of social media platforms you want to be on, you want to take a look at your target audience, and you also want to make sure what's doable for you and your business and your company, stuff like that. So millennials are bigger Facebook fans. There's something to still be said about Facebook. A lot of people say Facebook is dead, but it's not true. There's a big following on Facebook through just generally posting, groups, events, stuff like that. Gen Z uses TikTok more than millennials, but again, just noting that, is TikTok something that works, that makes sense for your business, that makes sense? Is it doable to create consistent video content like that? There's other ways to target them as well. Previously, we mentioned that they're both equally on Instagram. So maybe instead of jumping right into TikTok, you might want to start with Instagram and build it up there. So then we'll take a look at advertising. So 63% of Gen Z prefer real people in their advertisements as opposed to like celebrities or actors or stuff like that. But really only 37% of millennials prefer seeing them. So that's just kind of interesting to note when you're casting things or creating even static ads. Gen Z really prefers authentic content. So 84% of this generation will skip video ads as quickly as possible. According to a lot of the research studies that Holly and I were looking at, their attention span is pretty much like 8 seconds, which is crazy. So that means that if you're trying to really capture this generation's attention, you have to be so intentional with the first 8 seconds of your video, of your content. You have to grab their attention right away and keep it throughout the rest of it. So something to know when you're marketing to that generation. Another thing that's interesting to note is that Gen Z is twice as likely than millennials to purchase something on their mobile devices as opposed to like the computer. So this also brings into a point of you want to make sure that anything, your website, your social media, it's all mobile friendly. It all looks good. All your pictures look nice on a phone rather than your computer, because this might be where a lot of these people are purchasing and engaging with your brand. Holly, do you have anything to add here?
That is great. I think we're getting to the point where I think what you were all waiting for. So we can get here at Co-Creative, it's obviously an individual approach. So I do not know all of the businesses, organizations, nonprofits, et cetera, on this call personally. And we're speaking bigger picture. So we did want to create the next 2 slides are just identifying things that could speak to you, hopefully, no matter what your brand or business or organization might be, in some way, shape, or form. So maybe to some, it might be a little bit common sense, but to some others, we never want to assume who's in the room or what you know, or what your current marketing strategies are, if they exist at this point, et cetera. So just some things that we want to, I guess, plant seeds around, and really that you can start, I would say, working into or enacting right away in some cases. So with that said, just on the topic of brand, you do want to create a brand that these generations can believe in. And it's funny because I know we're talking a lot about millennials and Gen Z, and you're like, well, we still have to, focus on the previous generations because they're part of the target audience. So we're not saying shift everything all at once, and now all of a sudden you're a totally different brand or business or organization focusing on sustainability or equal rights or whatever it might be. But are there ways for you to pepper this in or start building that foundation so that over the next few years, it's built out and it's true to who you are, who your organization or business is. So you could do this in a couple different ways. It's highlighting your values. We actually did a practice here at Co-Creative. We've been around for a long time, but we never had an official mission or values. And again, I think it's really important for a business to say, it's like, oh, well, we've already been around for so many years. Why do we have to do that now? I would highly encourage you, if you plan on being around for just as many years as you've already been around times 2, do this exercise. And even if you have a mission and values in place and they've been around, I would get around the table and talk about, well, how do they read? And do we showcase them on our website or on any of our digital platforms? And are they easy to find? And do they actually represent who we are as an organization today and who we plan to be tomorrow? You could also, just through telling your story and engaging with your community on social media. So when you're in that digital space, sorry, I think someone came off mute and I'm echoing a little bit. Not sure if Jolene, if you have the power to, sorry about that. Sorry, okay, so just getting back to that, I'm not saying remove the, buy now, come to this event, on sale, click here, post by any means. You still need those things because you need those call to actions and you need to drive individuals back to your website, your in-store location, whatever that might be. But you want to have a healthy mixture of humanizing yourselves, remaining authentic, and getting obviously your job done of whatever you are putting out into the world. So it's case by case. We have the leisure here. It's easy for me to talk about what we do at Cool Creative. We don't have to. We have there's other marketing agencies that don't at all put their team front and center about showcasing, this is Samantha, this is Holly, this is what they're doing in the community. That is a choice that we make because it ties back into our mission, our values here at Cool Creative. So again, there's always, you could get creative in the ways that you show your authenticity. It does not mean, I'm not saying that you have to go out tomorrow and say, this is our president, this is our administrative assistant, and put their faces everywhere. There's creative ways to be able to still just showcase that you are humans behind the organization or brand name. On the topic of just showing your product supports a cause such as sustainability, if you are able, and again, as a business organization, to identify who do you support, and I'm not going to say it's not as easy as just saying we support this local nonprofit or organization that's standing, behind this movement. But what are you doing as a business to connect with that and show that you're supporting it? Are you financially donating? Are you going out there and volunteering for something? These are all things that you can do behind the scenes, but you could also technically use in your marketing. But be careful with that because you don't just want to make it seem like you're doing it for the marketing aspect of it, if that makes sense. So it's a fine line, but it's really important. And again, it just showcases what you believe in. And that's going to speak a lot to these up and coming generations. Well, millennials are here and the Gen Zers are up and coming. Consider offering a brand loyalty program. I know we talked about that. That might not be the case for everybody on this call, but if there's something that you could do, wonderful. And then utilize storytelling, getting real. Again, that's just tying back to telling your story. It goes a long way. And maybe if some of you are small business owners, or if you have the opportunity, even not through your brand, but as an individual, to just share some real behind the scenes experiences, even the hardships. A lot of times social media is highlighting all the good and the best things that are happening. But a lot of us don't tend to share, well, this is what it took to get it there. And it was 9 months in the making. And that type of sharing goes a long way as well, because again, it humanizes you and shows that you're real people working behind the scenes to make these changes. It doesn't just appear, you didn't wake up and make something happen on behalf of your brand, business, or organization. Samantha touched on it, but in the world of websites, if you do have a website at this point, making sure that it is optimized for mobile. That means your cell phones, your iPads, not just on a desktop computer, because far more people are looking at your website on those devices rather than a desktop or even a laptop at this point, because we're always on the go. You want to make sure it means that when they open it up, it's not super small and showing your whole homepage at once, but it is actually condensing, and you have to scroll and you have to click menu items to experience it. And truly understand what your brand or organization is representing, selling, etc. Also, and there might be some people on the call that don't want to hear this, but if your website was built in 2014, 2015, 2016, take a look at it. And there hasn't been any updates since then. I would say take a hot second and take a look at it, because there are so many changes just with the different, they're called CMS platforms, content management systems. There's so many different changes and upgrades and updates that break things or make them not mobile friendly, and that tie back to how Google itself is grading you and where you're showing up in those searches on the first page, the 10th page, the 100th page. There's a lot of factors there. That's a totally different webinar that we could do with the SBDC at some point that we've done in the past a few times, but just making sure that you are spending a little bit of time with that just to assess. And the world's changing fast and technology is changing the world even faster. So I would encourage you, I'm not even saying it has to be with Cole Creative, but just work it into your line item pretty much yearly or like every other year that you are doing some kind of update, refresh, et cetera, of your website at this point. Okay. Samantha, do you have anything to add here? I can go to the next slide for you.
I think I'm good.
Great. Okay. Let's see. There you go.
Awesome. So just continuing in this discussion of how you can take the steps to update your marketing playbook, we'll look at social media. So Holly kind of alluded to this a little. It's so important to show personality and humanity on social media. And it might be helpful for you to take a step back when establishing your brand on social media and even on your website and other platforms too. Take a step back and think, why do I support the brands that I support? Why do I go to that same coffee shop every single day? You can even ask some of your best customers, those customers who have grown to become friends, those people who consistently volunteer at your nonprofit. Take a step back and ask them, like, hey, what makes you come back to us every year? What makes you devote all your time to us? And hear them out and listen and kind of grow on that. I think of the different small businesses in my area, and there's a cafe, and they really take the time to they show you the hardships. This is a building they bought a few years ago, and for the first 2 years they owned it, they weren't making any money at all. They were like really trying and struggling, and they shared that. They shared it on their website's about page. They went through their whole story. They shared it on social media. This is something they wanted to do. They wanted to establish themselves in this community, and it was hard. And now they're showing their support. They're hiring local artists to paint murals inside their space. They're showing that off. They show off their family. I know their names. I know their dogs' names. Like, it's all these like human elements that make you connect with it, so that when you show up to that space, you know what it took to get there. You know what this mural represents. You know the people who are serving your drinks, the people whose faces you see when you walk in. So it's all this personality and humanity that really will separate your business, your nonprofit, from all those like faceless corporations out there who are just like trying to sell people something. This is something you're building. This is something you're connecting with people about. So it's all that stuff that you take into account when you're building your brand on social media. Another thing that you can do is, instead of just listing bland details about your product or services, you can show it off. You can create that video content and show how this product would fit into your ideal customer's life, or show the cool features of it, show somebody using it out in the real world. You can also make sure that you're utilizing a variety of different platforms to make sure you're hitting both generations, or your target generations for that matter. But what we like to say at Cole Creative is we prefer much more quality over quantity. I've seen like it's much better to really focus on 1 to 2 platforms and make them really shine than trying to spread yourself too thin and, you know, try to be on all 10 platforms just for the sake of being on them. So you want to kind of start with 1 or 2, build that up, target the people who exist there. And then if you find like, oh, a lot of my customers are actually on LinkedIn and we're only on Facebook and Instagram, let's move over there. Let's try that out. Or, you know, we're doing really great with Instagram. We're creating a lot of consistent video content. Our reels are getting a lot of views. Let's try a TikTok. Let's test it out and see how it does. So it's just kind of thinking about all those decisions when deciding which platforms you want to be on. Another thing we'll touch base on is advertising. So a lot of, in this digital age, we see a lot of like social media ads, you see digital billboards, you see digital ads on websites. But sometimes if the digital ads aren't getting the engagement you're looking for, there's still something to be said about print ad campaigns. From what we've researched, we actually found that Gen Z, they actually tend to trust print ads and real things a little bit more than video ads or those digital ads. Like we said earlier, their attention span's 8 seconds. It's much quicker to hit that skip button than it is to pick up a piece of paper or some fun packaging and then like throw it out into the recycling. There could be really cool things that you could do with print ads to make them stand out and turn them into a customer experience. There's things you can make the packaging really fun and unique. You could do cool things with graphics. You could do cool things with VR that kind of turns it more into a customer experience. So just to kind of share like a real life example, about a month ago, I received this really strange postcard, and I'll show it if people can see the screen. So it's just this black postcard with this weird design, some numbers, and it just says, "They're coming." And that's it. That there was no like logo or anything. And it was honestly a little weird because you're looking at it, you're like, what the heck does this mean? So I'm spending time with it. Symbols don't mean anything to me. They're coming just sounds ominous. But there was this string of numbers. And if you spent some time with it, like I did, I found out that those numbers were actually a phone number. And if you called the phone number, you got the next piece of the puzzle. And then if you like listed that and decoded that clue, you'd get the next clue. So it turned out this was from some weird video game, but I spent an embarrassing amount of time with this postcard, like to the fact that I still saved it for like cases like this of look how weird this is. But I spent so much time with this, so much more than I would have if I just received a plain postcard, like advertising the video game of like what it was or what it was about. It was that experience of like that air of mystery about it that like made it stick out from the rest of my junk mail pile and made me engage with this brand more than I would have if I just saw like a quick video ad I could skip, or if I saw it on my social media and I just scrolled past it. So it's stuff like that that you can really take that print ad to the next level, even if it does sound a little weird, even if you're, making those like strange things, but your audience might connect with it, engage with it in ways you don't expect.
That's so great. And I was unaware of that postcard, and I'm going to want to see it next time that you're in town, Samantha. That's awesome. That's great. And I know we don't have it on here, and Samantha, if you have any information on this as well, but I know email marketing is something that a lot of local businesses and organizations do as well. And I just wanted to make note that that is still relevant. I know sometimes people say, oh, no one checks their emails, but there's actually, and I don't have them in front of me and I apologize, but I'm sure we can pull them up if anybody's interested. The numbers around how many millennials and Gen Zers do check their emails or have very specific emails that they, the ones where they're like, this is my email, but they're never checking it, versus this is my real email that I do check. And because we have like multiple email accounts as millennials and Gen Zers, but it is still relevant. I would say consistency matters when it comes to that. I will admit, if it's coming in every day, all day, I'm unsubscribing, even if I'll think I'll get my information from this business or organization in a different way. So finding that balance of how often is definitely a part of the marketing discussion and plan that you should come up with. But I just want to plant the seed that it's still relevant, even outside of this area. And if you're kind of like, oh, do we do this? Do we not? I would say yes. And just do it in a consistent manner that wouldn't overwhelm an inbox, but still get your messages across and out to people in a different way, and just hit them from a different perspective every once in a while. But on that note, we're at the end of this. So I want to open it to questions, but I would love to bring everybody back. So I'm going to stop screen sharing if that's okay. I started at the beginning of this, I'm like, oh, we have like 20 minutes of information, but we didn't like run through this presentation. So hopefully that was fruitful for all of you. Jolene, I believe we have a couple minutes here, right? If there's any specific questions.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, happy to open it up, and obviously we'll do our best and we'll be transparent if we don't have the answer, but we'll find it for you. And also just noting, and again, we always appreciate these collaborations with the Small Business Development Center over at Wilkes University. It's a great opportunity for us to make sure that we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk, we're doing more research. It encourages us to learn, deeper and more about things. And we just love sharing information. So there's no strings attached here. If anybody, whenever we come to these things, we do like to say, if anybody on this call even wants to have a 30-minute conversation, we're not in the business of like selling ourselves to you. Like genuinely, we will get on a 30-minute call, just hear you out, have a one-on-one conversation, and then you can go your merry way, implement it or not. And I say that like very genuinely, very authentically. Just, you spent the hour with us. So that's the least we could do if you'd like to take advantage of that. Let's see, how do you think is the best way to handle privacy in a world where everything is so honest? That's a good question. Let me think on that. And Samantha, if you have.
I think in terms of,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I think in terms of your customers' privacy, it's always in best practice to, if people are signing up for your email list, make sure they're just on your email list. You don't want to be that company selling emails to people or selling phone numbers. And it turns out like, people are calling numbers from a telemarketer because company A sold them. And it's like, that does not look good. So you want to make sure you are doing everything on your end to value your customers' privacy, and you got to show them loyalty back. If you want them to show loyalty to your company, you got to be respectful and true to them as well.
Yeah, and Veronica, with if there's a more specific ask you have here, just let us know. But in the realm of, so again, I could speak to co-creative fairly easily. We have an understanding here at co-creative that we share and celebrate. We use imagery, we use information, but at the end of the day, there's certain things that we definitely check with one another. Like, before we put this on co-creative social media, is this okay with you? But also we typically just keep it more professional and don't want to overshare. Let's see. So again, if there's something more specific there, we could get deeper, but I would say permission, like always get permission depending on what it is exactly. And Samantha made a great point, whether it's emails or something else entirely. If you are gathering information from your followers, your buyers, etc., you have access to do that. I would also say, if you have any forms that exist out there, like on your website, make sure that you have that checkbox, like letting people know, like, this information is staying with you. Or if you have an intention of sharing that information, that must also be out there on those forms, those intake type things, if that makes sense. Like, you must let people know that you may give their information to something or someone else. So again, I don't know if we hit your question there. Let's see. We have something from Kelsey. What are some examples of expressing authenticity to customers in instances of failure, setbacks, in positive ways? Well, I think that's a great question. I'm happy to jump in here, and Samantha, if you have any thoughts. So kind of going off of Veronica's, like, in a world that's so honest, I think that there's a fine line. I'm assuming we're all on social media to some extent. And we know when we read certain posts, it feels a little bit complainy, or, you almost want to stir the pot a little bit with your followers, whether it's your friends or if it's through. So one, I would just encourage you to write it in a way where you are setting a foundation and sharing facts around it, with like tying in some emotion, and ending it, or at some point in the messaging, identifying what the positive outlook, even if it wasn't a positive outcome. It's like, this was the failure, and it's a failure, and there wasn't a success technically in this instance. What was the lesson learned? I think leaning into lessons learned go a long way. So that's I would say my easiest and kind of first thought when I read that question. Samantha, I don't know if you have any thoughts there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to think, when I'm doing this with my own social media or talking to people about this, I like to tell them, you're not visualizing this as a conversation between you and your best friend where you're just like venting and spewing out all that negativity to release all that emotions. That's not something you want to do on social media. It's not something like, you don't want to be blaming, you don't want to be super mean to other people or somebody that might be contributing to these failures or setbacks. It's more so like, imagine you're talking to that voice in your head and giving yourself a pep talk of like, hey, we've been through some tough times. We really have had trouble getting this business started, but here's what we've learned so far. Here's how much we've grown in this year. Here's the positives that we're doing, and here's why I'm going to keep going, and here's what I believe in. So it's that reflection aspect, I think, that kind of, Holly, you said too, of making sure like you're laying out the facts and you're saying, here's why I want to continue. Here's where we're moving forward with this.
Yeah, I think that goes. And then Kelsey also asked, which social media channels do you recommend starting with? I would say this comes down to individually, like, what is your business? What is your organization? What are you trying to do? What are your target audiences? But a blanket statement that typically applies to most people on calls like this, or that give us a call here at Co-Creative, is in that Facebook realm, because it's covering a vast array of multiple generations right now of olderly, my grandparents are on Facebook as well. But as soon as I go to, let's say, like a junior class at Wilkes University, and I ask, like, who's on Facebook? Like, one person raises their hands because they don't want to go on because they're parents. So keeping that in mind, again, depending on how young or old your age demographic might be. The nice thing about Facebook is, one, it also owns Instagram, and they have this manager where you can be scheduling things out. So we've done webinars on this as well, just the benefits of social media and being able to schedule things out, especially if you're a one-man shop or a smaller business or organization. You don't want to be thinking every single day, what am I posting? So they have behind the scenes tools that you can easily lean into to be able to schedule across Facebook and Instagram, if you decide Instagram is also a place to be. So I have a personal preference. This isn't really professional. I guess it's professional, Holly speaking as well. I love LinkedIn for making genuine connections. You definitely have to weed through the like 100 spam messages you'll receive a month. I won't lie, just because people pay to be able to like spam you like that. But it's just been a really good place for, and I could speak to, to me and my role in the community, and if there's anyone, similar on the call, to be able to just meet other people or find people to work for the company as well, because there's a lot of younger people and then a lot of our HR type people that live and exist on LinkedIn. So I hope that answers your question. Samantha, I don't know if you have any thoughts, just being obviously our content manager, but.
Yeah, I would also recommend, like, if you are the sole person running your company's if running your company's social media accounts, if you're, a smaller team, I would also start with the one you're most comfortable with using on your personal end. If you're an Instagram person, maybe start there because you're more familiar with the platform, and then kind of grow from there.
Definitely. I feel like we're talking faster because we can see the clock ticking. You're welcome, Kelsey. Thank you for your question.
Your questions were great. Thank you, Kelsey.
Well, again, thank you. And don't hesitate to reach out. I don't know, Jolene, if it's possible for you to send out to anybody that attended today our contact information. No pressure. If anybody's interested, or I can even throw this in here if anyone wants to grab it. Just shoot me an email. Easiest way to get to me. If you want to have that conversation. Again, literally no strings attached, just happy to help and support local organizations and businesses in this area, if that's where you're located. I don't even know.
And I could include your contact information in my follow-up emails
Great.
as well.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Great.
And if there are any other questions, I just wanted to say thank you to Holly and Samantha for being here with us today and sharing your presentation. We at the Wilkes SBDC really appreciate our partnership with Co-Creative and the expertise that you lend to our clients. It's greatly valued.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having
Wonderful.
us.
Thank you, Veronica. And thank you, everybody, for just, again, spending your lunch hour with us. I'm going to go take a late lunch now, but let us know if there's ever a topic. I'm sure we could figure it out, and we're happy to, if it's in our wheelhouse, of course, we're happy to put something together and come back with you all.
Ed, before we leave today, I just want to note for our clients that I will be making available the recording of the training in case you want to go back to it on our Wilkes University SBDC YouTube channel. And I'll make sure that I email that link to all of our attendees. And I'll also be sending out the link to a post-event survey so that we can determine which of our resources will best suit your needs and what topics all of you would like to see in future sessions. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for attending the training today. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at the SBDC. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.